The bones of this wing are all cleaned up and ready for a coat of primer now. I've got a real nice inflatable paint booth that I bought with the intent of painting this wing with when it was covered, spraying on the finish coat of poly brush and poly spray and then the finish coat on the wing. But that has to be set up outside. I don't have a space big enough indoors to set it up. The weather here is not conducive for setting that thing up right now. In fact, it just started snowing again. So I've got some visqueen here, some rolls of plastic. I'm going to tack those up around the different things here so we don't get overspray all over everything in here. I've got the first sheet tacked up there to the ceiling, covering up the shelves there on that wall over there. So we've got some more to put up. We'll put up over the clothes rack that's hanging in the washer and dryer there. We can't use the washer right now because the water's froze up outside, so that's not a big deal. We'll cover that up. It's only going to take me a couple days to do this paint job. So anyway, I'll get that end of the house, the basement, covered up so it doesn't get overspray all over it. I'll cover up my lathe and the stuff on this side. Then we'll have ourselves a little paint booth here to put some primer on that wing with. I think that thing is ready to paint now. I came in earlier today, put up all the visqueen and stuff around here to protect everything from overspray, and then I wiped the whole thing down with some Prepsol. It should be just as clean as it's ever going to be by washing it down with the acid and all of the stuff that I did on it. But just to be sure, I washed it down with some Prepsol, wax and oil grease remover. I let that flash off, and I just came in and went over it with a tack cloth. I've got some wash primer mixed up in a pot over there. I'm going to go ahead and go over and put it in the gun and come out and start spraying, I guess. I've got a different gun this time. I got a little HVLP minigun, cheap one. It's a copy of the SATA. It's not near as good as that, but it should be a little better than that gun I was using the other day. Well, anyway, I guess I might as well get busy and get this done. I'm going to go load the gun up with some paint, start shooting it, I guess. Well, that looks pretty good. A little thick in some places. It runs and stuff on it, but nobody will ever see it until the next person that takes it apart. I'll be long gone by then. What I need to do now is to turn that over, and then I can squirt that bottom rail, that other rail, the top, the other side of the spars, and get down in the channel there where the I-beam goes down in on that side. I got it pretty well flooded down in here. You don't want to put too heavy a coat of that wash primer on. It just bonds with the aluminum, and it's not a primer. Anyway, I got it on there pretty good, I think. That looks pretty good. The problem with that little teeny gun is you got to keep going over and filling it up. It took more to do that than I thought, but that new gun works a lot better than the old one does. But you got better spray pattern and stuff on it. More controllable. It's a HVLP, so I didn't have to use near as much pressure, so shouldn't be hardly any overspray on it. Anyway, that's good enough for tonight. Tomorrow I'll get my son to flip it over on the other side, finish that up, and then I guess the next thing is to mix up some primer. Like I said, this stuff is not a primer, it's just kind of corrosion resistant. It kind of etches into the metal, but it's on there. That's the good step. You know, that wing looks a lot more like it does now than it did before. I got the wash primer on it, on all the surfaces of it, and I just barely had enough to get over everything. In fact, the last little bit I thinned out with some reducer to get it to get on everything, and it didn't make any difference because that stuff's supposed to go on water thin anyway, pretty thin. But anyway, it's on there, and that looks a whole lot better. I got it down in those places down here where, in the grooves down there where the I-beam folds back over itself inside the bulb angle, and that is a spot that could potentially be a sore spot for any corrosion, water building up, especially on the lower one. And then got the lower ribs. I did the upper ones last night, and then my son come over this morning and helped me flip this over, and I just got done with a few minutes ago, just got done with the lower ones. So the lower ribs are all done, the spars all done. Flying wires, I squirted them with a little bit. They were cleaned off. Drag, anti-drag struts, those are all nice. They got cleaned up and they look pretty good now. So right now I'm mixing up some primer. I've got some PPG DP48 LF. Well, I started using those products back when it was still Ditzler over 40 years ago. I actually went to the Ditzler school on applying paint and stuff at one point in time. 100 years ago, Ditzler changed over to PPG. Used to use DP40 a lot, which is a green-gray color. 48 is white, DP90 is black, I think DP70 is green. Anyway, they got lots of different colors, but now they've changed it to the low Vogue stuff, which I don't know whether it works as good or not, but anyway, it's environmentally friendly now. So anyway, I've got that mixing up. It mixes 2-to-1 with activator, and then I mix a half a part of reducer in with it. And according to the spec sheets, that makes it into a primer sealer instead of just a primer. I'm not sure what the difference is. The sealer seals the surface so water can't get through it. It takes 30 minutes for that stuff to catalyze or to cook to get before you use it. So I just got done mixing it. You know, wait 30 minutes or more. Might be a little longer because it's cool in here. I had the heater off while I was painting, and then when I got done painting, I opened the door up so some of the fumes and stuff would get out of here. Anyway, it's a little cooler in here than what it was. Even then, it only heats up to about 60 degrees. Wife just came back from town, and she had me a little care package. I got this from Dakota Cub. I got felt here for the fuel tank. Cushion for the fuel tank straps. I got a roll of that felt, and then I got these are the fabric formers that go around the struts, the strut attach points onto the wing there, guards, whatever the heck they're called. And then the pièce de résistance. I got the new hinge. It looks pretty good. We got a kit for it too. Got some rivets. These must be the rivets to rivet it onto the false bar, and then there's a nut, screw, and a bolt there, and another little screw. The other one is welded in. This bracket is welded into it, but this one is set up, I guess. You put it where you want it, drill a hole in it, and then put that screw through it, and then there's another screw that goes in there to keep it from moving or something. Anyway, that's kind of the way they are in the blueprints. These other ones were all welded. This brackets here were all welded onto the hinge itself. Something on this hinge is they've got a hole drilled down here. See, we got the bearing block here, it's in there, and it's got the taper in it, the chamfer in it for the water drain, but they went ahead and put a hole in it down here for a water drain for even more. So that's pretty good. You can say this thing has been allodyne or anodized, but this is steel, so it's not allodyne or anodized. But it is a yellowish color, brassy color. And then the same with this. Well, I think I'll powder coat those before I put them together. But yeah, that looks really nice. So that was one of the things that needed to be replaced on here. I can get that together, and when I get this false spars cleaned up and put that back on the false spar. So I'm going to wait for that paint to catalyze or to cook, and then I'll come back in here and squirt the primer on there. I got the first coat of primer on there, and that looks pretty good. Well, I got to flip the thing over so I can get a coat on the top rails, the spars, and the struts and the ribs and stuff. But yeah, that's coming along. That should protect that, keep it from corroding for as long as I need it, and then some. I'll be digging it out of a landfill someplace in 10,000 years and think it's a dinosaur or something. But that's done for now. Got to let that paint cure enough that I can flip that over right side up. Wow, what a difference. That thing looks like a piece of art now. No more cruddy looking aluminum look. All the pits and all the stuff, the potential corrosion is all gone, and now it's nice and shiny white. Well, I used the polyfiber 2-part epoxy here in the wing tack bay, mainly because I didn't want to dig out my white primer, and also because parts of that have to be glue resistant when I glue the fabric on it. But the rest of that doesn't get glued down or anything like that, so it doesn't need to be glue resistant. I've got some PPG DP48LF, mixed that up and sprayed that on top of the wash primer that I put on. And that made that thing pop. And one of the reasons I like the white primer on there is because you can see inside of it easy when you go to do an inspection. Once that wing's all covered, painted, when you go to inspect the inside of it, it's dark in there. With it painted white like that, if you stick a flashlight up in there and stuff, it'll reflect the light. It'll be a lot easier to see things that are going on inside the wing. Now, most guys building a Cub don't want their wing painted or anything painted that they don't have to. In fact, a lot of them will wind up not even putting enough paint or polyfiber and stuff on the wings to really protect the fabric. Shave the bolt heads and shave their washers and shave the rivets down and everything else, trying to save an ounce here and a half of an ounce there. They're primarily trying to get a performance airplane for short takeoff and landing, and most of those airplanes, they don't have to worry too much about longevity. In fact, most of them will wind up being wrecked and have to be rebuilt again after a year or two. I'm trying to make this one last as long as it can in the salt air environment. It's probably going to last a lot longer than I need it to now. It should last another 65 years. Well, anyway, I think that looks pretty good. Pretty happy with that. I'm not quite done with this portion of the wing yet. This thing was rode hard and put away wet. And if you don't know horses and don't know what that means, when you work a horse and work it hard, it builds up a sweat and gets overheated. If you just ride it back into the stable and put it away, then you've got a problem with the horse. Its muscles tensing up and it gets health issues and structural problems. So you need to take the horse when you work it real hard, and then slow down and walk it and dry it out and take care of it before you put it away. Well, anyway, this thing has been abused, and it's not me that abused it. I can see places on it when I get to looking where they've patched up the ribs and stuff in several places. The third and fourth rib, and then some others on down, have some doublers put on the bottom where the bottoms of the ribs were bent a little bit, and they put some extra structure in there, a little doubler in there, to stiffen those up and strengthen them up. And there's some cap strips put on the top in several places. But there's several of the ribs that have some dents and stuff in them, both in the top and the bottom, and need some more work to them. Like I said, I don't know what happened to it. It hasn't happened on my watch, but well, it could have. The birds get on top of the wings there. Actually, the crows and the seagulls will pick up clam shells and mussel shells and stuff and then fly up in the air and drop them and then peck at them, and it's possible they could have landed on the top there and in places and dented those ribs. And then the crows bang on that too. It's possible they could have done that, or an eagle landed on it, or another large bird landed on it or something in spots, put a lot of weight in one spot and bent the rib. So anyway, now that I've got it painted, I've got some repair work to do on some of the ribs, some doublers to put on and stuff to try to straighten those out a little bit. And then I guess it's time to start going over all of the leading edge skins and the false spars and get those cleaned up and ready to put back on. And I've got a lot of other pieces that I've taken off that I can put on now. I still have to work over the landing light. The landing light was pretty crusty looking. The paint was peeling off of it and it was nasty looking, so I've got it out of there. I took it out of there to make it easier to clean up around there anyway. I'm going to strip the pieces down for it and get those cleaned up and reinstalled. So there's still a lot of work to do on this wing before we even get ready to put the fabric on it. Anyway, it's painted and it is pretty now.